They call it stepping behind the pine curtain for a reason, because as soon as you cross over, everything, including the sky, becomes swallowed up by a towering veil of green. To most, this doesn't feel like Texas, at least not the Texas you can find on a postcard. But to those that know better, East Texas is truly hallowed ground, where so much of the Texas story began, with some parts that they're still writing.
Crockett!
You're covering up the name with the hand.
Crockett!
No, you're covering up with the hat.
Crockett!
You're still covering up with your head.
This episode was made for y'all with the help of our awesome partners. Check the caption for more info. Crockett sits near the dead center of East Texas, about 2 hours from, well, everywhere. It's here where the trees open up just wide enough to plant a town, and that town is Crockett. Its population hasn't changed a whole lot in 60 years, and truthfully, neither has downtown, which to some extent feels frozen in time. All right, so here we are behind the pine curtain in Crockett, Texas, the heart of Houston County. There's the courthouse right there. But this was actually the first new county formed by the Republic of Texas back in 1837. And to state the blaringly obvious, Houston County, very different from Houston City. Different by about 100 miles and 2.5 million people. Maybe even more different in terms of pace. Yeah, things move a little slower out here in East Texas. Say about as slow as a man trying to walk from Tennessee to Texas. And herein lies the tale of Crockett's name. The story of the man, the myth, the king of the wild frontier, Davy Crockett and his thirst for, well, water. You see, after losing political re-election in Tennessee, Davy set out for Texas, and on his way to the Alamo, he stopped here in town to visit an old friend. And while camped here, in one of the most important and often overlooked moments of Texas history, Davy Crockett drank from this spring right here. Oh, how glorious it must have been. There you have it, folks. In one shining moment, Davy's thirst was quenched and history was made. You know, it probably looks a little different today than it used to, but hey, if Davy Crockett drank here, then that is worth remembering, right? That's a certain level of fame. Like, there's famous people, and then there's super famous people where all they have to do is show up in your town, drink from a spring, and you rename the entire town after them.
You know what makes that easy?
That's top level.
You know what makes that easy? Is when you're settling a place and you can name towns. Like, all the towns are named now.
That's true.
Yeah,
we're just too late for our time. We could have towns named after us all over Texas.
True. Yeah. So I think Davy Crockett, for all the good things he did, I would make his #1 skill timing. Right time
from the Alamo.
Right place. Here on the Alamo. Incredible timing.
Incredible timing. You know, if you think about it, Crockett was only in Texas for like 2 months and was able to become one of our most venerated heroes. That is very impressive timing.
I'm hungry.
Happiness is living in Houston County. All right. Happiness will also be eating in Houston County very shortly. Welcome to the Moosehead Cafe. At first glance, well, this doesn't look like much of a traditional cafe, and that's because for 100 years, it was Crockett's hardware store. Today, it's a mix between a restaurant and a general store with some peculiar decor, making it really an antique shop meets taxidermist meets political museum? Yeah, but don't worry. Everyone is welcome here, not just card-carrying Republicans. It's got its own East Texas style of strange, the idea of Joni Clontz, who happens to be both the mayor of Crockett and the owner of the Moosehead. Well, multiple moose heads.
I'm guessing is this him?
No.
Or is that him over there?
No, the original Moosehead was back in the gun department, which is back where the restrooms are now. I have no imagination, so that's how we got with the name. We have a Moosehead. So we took the Moosehead and put it up here. Then someone else brought me that moose, and somebody brought me that elk.
Those are pretty big gifts.
Yes,
I mean, come in and make a peace offering and get some fried pickles.
Right, yeah.
Well, the Moosehead's kind of like the iconic stop on the square, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What do you call it?
The hub of Houston County.
The hub of Houston County.
All roads lead to Crockett.
How do you sum up this town to people?
We have the friendliest people any place around. We have a lot of history here. We're just nice people.
Okay. Yeah, good down-home folks
That's
serve
right.
you some fried pickles and homemade ranch.
That's right.
Political affiliations aside, if we can't come together over some fried pickles and ranch, well then we have much bigger problems. And when it comes to the food, well, the Moosehead specializes in everything a hometown cafe should. Chicken fried steak, hand-battered onion rings, and daily plate lunch specials.
We dip everything by hand. Even our chicken fried steaks are double dipped. We're known for our Reubens.
That's tantalizing the taste buds a little bit
because
over
we make
here.
our own sauce.
Ooh, like Russian dressing?
Yes, and
kind
it's real
of.
spicy.
Now you're really talking.
A little secret sauce flavor punch that also comes on the patty melt for those times when you can't decide if you want a burger or a Reuben. Toasted bread, grilled onions, melted Swiss, and a big old hunk of meat.
Ooh, that's good. You know, cheeseburger's delicious enough. Put it on buttered bread with grilled onions, a little bacon, some dripping sauce. That's a cheeseburger on another plane, man. That's like up here. And where else but small town Texas can you walk into a little cafe on the square that's packed full of locals, that's also run by the mayor? I just love that.
You know, the Thirsty Davy story is nice, but the history of this town is so much deeper. It's especially rich around the history of African American Texans living here in East Texas. For instance, although it's now in ruins, Mary Allen College was the first women's college for African Americans in the state. In the 1920s through 60s, Crockett's Camp Street was one of the hottest stops for black musicians on the blues circuit. Players like Blind Lemon Jefferson, T-Bone Walker, even Big Mama Thornton made their name here. Local musician Lightning Hopkins became a legend right here on this row. And if you know rodeo, well then you know Murtis Deitman. Born and raised here in town, Murtis was the first African American to compete in the National Rodeo Finals, earning him the name the Jackie Robinson of rodeo. You know, it would require an entire Ken Burns documentary to even scratch the surface here in Crockett. But we're going to take aim at a specific era of the East Texas story, the tale of some of the first inhabitants of these woods, which means it's time for a drive into the Davy Crockett National Forest. An expansive 160,000-acre protected forest and a beautiful place to experience God's green earth.
It's interesting. So I've got friends from West Texas, and they come out to the piney woods, and they get claustrophobic.
Well, yeah, it's a total
breathe,
reversal.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Like
Closing in on you.
you've got nothing but sky out there, and then here it's like, yeah, the trees are going to crush you.
Yeah.
It's about knowing what's coming. Just
Yeah.
like zombie movies. You got to have a clear line of sight, you organize a kill zone, so you know where the zombies come, you can kill them.
Personally, I love the trees. But after about 25 miles of thick woods, well, we come upon a clearing marked by some odd earthen hills. Now, it may not seem like much just passing by, but ladies and gentlemen, this is the site of one of the oldest communities in Texas. This is the Caddo Mounds State Historic Site. If you rewind the clock about 1,000 years, this would have been a bustling village with dozens of homes, gardens, farmland, a temple, and hundreds of native Caddo Indians. You may not know it, but we owe quite a bit to the Caddo, including the word Texas.
So there's a Caddo greeting that is Tejas, which means it's a friendly greeting, it means friend. And when the Spanish came, that became Tejas,
Okay.
which in turn became Texas.
Texas, wow, so we get our very name from these guys. That's
We do.
amazing.
Yep.
This is Rachel Galan, who helps visitors understand the incredibly intricate history of the Caddo people.
So what a lot of people don't realize is that the Caddo people who lived here, this was a really complex, developed society for decades. So a large ceremonial center, they had their own religion structure, they had their own political structure, they were renowned traders, they traded salt and bow blanks and pottery far and wide.
The Caddo Nation stretched from East Texas all the way up to Missouri. And unlike the Comanche or Apache, who were nomadic, the Caddo stayed put and built incredible communities anchored around permanent mounds of dirt, the focal point of this historic site.
There are 3 earthen mounds here. In the distance back there is the High Temple Mound, the ceremonial mound. So that would have been the religious heart of the community. This low platform mound, it was built about the last 100 years of this occupation. We talk about it as like a stage for important events. This is our burial mound. So archaeologists believe that there are about 90 people that were buried in this mound, all the political and the religious elite.
And is that how the mound got taller?
Right, so these were
Layer
built
1,
up
layer
over,
2,
yeah,
like a cake?
over generations. And they were buried with what they needed for a journey. So they believed in a 6-day journey to the afterlife. They believed that after you died, your spirits, you became stars in the sky. So they were buried with weapons and pottery and things that they needed to make that journey.
To make a 6-day journey. I feel like I'm sort of standing in front of one of the pyramids of Egypt, right?
Right?
The Texas version, at least.
It does take some imagination to see a thriving community out here on this prairie. But luckily, they've built a home that can truly take us back.
And we built it with the Caddo people. So this is the only grass house on Caddo land that the Caddo helped build.
Oh, that's amazing.
Houses like this and land were actually owned by the women in Caddo culture, who would have shared the home with the wife's family. So not only did the Caddo men own virtually nothing of value, they also had to sleep next to their mother-in-laws.
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. You know, I've slept in much worse.
Right?
You've done such a good job kind of recreating the moment.
This is a really special space.
Yeah.
And one of the big challenges that we have is how to really build and strengthen those connections with the living Caddo people.
Yeah.
And how to bring this into current times for visitors and how to give them something authentic.
Amazing.
I'd say they're doing an amazing job. For Texas, well, it doesn't get much more authentic than this.
We now interrupt this programming to remind you to like and subscribe. Now back to the road.
The Caddo Empire ruled this land for centuries, until in the 1600s, a group of bearded conquistadors and Franciscan monks arrived and claimed the land as their own. And while we think of the Spanish influence in San Antonio or El Paso, well, it was actually here in the woods of East Texas where the Spanish built their very first Texan mission, Mission San Francisco de Tejas. Now, as you might have guessed, this is not the original building, but one constructed in the 1930s by the CCC to give us all a place to recognize and memorialize the spirit of the Spanish. And here's Texas Park Superintendent Gary Coker to tell us a bit more.
The original mission, nobody knows where it was originally. It was somewhere near Augusta, which is about 4 miles kind of northwest of here. And this doesn't look like a Spanish mission. You see how it's made like Lincoln logs?
Yeah, right.
Well, Spanish mission, the logs would have been vertical, more of a picket structure, and there may or may not have been a stone floor.
Okay.
While it may not be authentic to Spain, the stonework that the CCC did is impressive, and now historic in its own right. But this building at least gives visitors a place to connect to the Spanish history of East Texas, even if it was very short-lived.
Their mission lasted about 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Things just didn't go well for them at all. Number one, trying to get supplies from 700 miles away through the wilderness was tough.
Sure.
Number two, the Indians didn't want to come around because they were getting sick from the European diseases.
Okay.
But they thought it was the holy water the priests were putting on them that was killing them, so they didn't want to come around. Eventually, the last two priests packed up the church vestments, they buried the church bell and the cannon, and took off back to Mexico.
This particular mission relocated to San Antonio to become Mission Esperada. And while nothing original to the mission is left out here, well, the park does have a piece of the way the missions arrived. Now, you may think of I-10 as the most famous road in Texas, but oh no, I give you El Camino Real, the royal highway that for 150 years was the best way to traverse the Texas frontier.
You're standing in the footprints of Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, Cynthia Ann Parker, William Barrett Travis, Moses Austin, Stephen F. Austin. Just look in your Texas history book. Just about any name in there probably spent some time on El Camino Real de las Tejas.
The road ran from Louisiana down to Mexico, and while almost all of it has been lost to erosion and time, this section is positively bona fide.
As you can see, we're standing in a big swale in the ground here. You see these sides. This swale runs contrary to all of the topography out here. There's no natural reason for this to be here. Can you think about how many people over how much time had to travel down this to beat this down this far?
No kidding.
That's a lot of people over a lot of time. But if you look at Texas as being, I know it sounds cliche, a big cultural melting pot, well, El Camino Real is the spoon that stirred it up.
Oh, well said.
This is awesome to be standing in the footprints of giants, figuratively speaking. And I think that calls for a hike.
Hey crew, guess what? We're gonna go hike the Camino Real. Who's in? What are y'all doing, packing up gear?
No, come on, man. It's gonna be awesome.
150
degrees out here.
You're not getting paid if you walk away, all right? Come on, this way.
It's gonna take forever.
I mean, we'll hike just a few hours or something, I don't know.
I'm serious.
This isn't so bad. I'm not wearing a dress this time.
I've been training for the Appalachian Trail. This is nothing, okay, y'all? This is nothing.
It's day 17 of the hike. We're about to mutiny on Chet.
Always has these brilliant ideas. Wasting all of our time.
What a jerk for making us go on this thing.
At this point, I'd rather wear the dress.
Why?
I quit. I'm a quitter. Just say it. I'll say it. I'm a quitter. I don't care.
What are y'all doing?
I'm stopping.
We're done.
No, I'm
You
stopping.
can't
That's it.
quit. We
No,
just
not
started.
yet. No.
We started right over there. There's the camera. You can still see Gary. He's right there, and he's laughing at us.
This isn't even fun. Let's just get back in the cars.
You
Fine.
go by yourself.
Fine. No, we're all going back to the. We're a crew. We stay together.
You know, I try to bring them to nice places, and this is the reward I get. Maybe they're just hangry, which I know how to fix that one. This is Rosemary's Hilltop Kitchen, which I guess is technically on a hilltop, but when it comes to the best country cooking buffet in town, well, this is the mountaintop. Famous for its down-home atmosphere and finger-licking food. This is Rosemary herself.
But this used to be an old gas station, I
It
guess.
has been several things. It was, a gas station, and auto parts store, and the lady running the little store here, she figured out that she could charge, 10 times what it cost her for an egg, and people would pay it, and she says, gold mine.
So she started making scrambled eggs for them?
She opened a restaurant and made a killing.
11 years ago, it was Rosemary's turn, and so she took the reins, and the range, and the oven, and the fryer, serving up Texas-sized portions and an experience that many of us know well.
To me, what this feels like is like you're going to just sort of a church potluck.
Right.
And you got all the fixins and the cornbread and the fried chicken.
And the homemade pie.
Oh, and homemade pie. All right, time to eat. It's like at-home dinnerware. Which plate? I'm gonna go with white. Whew, man. How do you resist not loading your plate up? This is exactly like every church potluck I've been to. You start by just making a ring around your plate of everything, and somehow you hope that you've got a little bit of room left for the main course. Chicken spaghetti. Now that's some good country eating right there. And we'll leave the salad bar out of this. But I did forget the fried chicken. Boom. Look at all the color on this plate. I do have something green, 2 things green. Mama would be proud. Carrots and cabbage, turnip greens. Oh yeah. She was not lying about this fried chicken. Oh man. Check that out. Chicken spaghetti. Basically, noodles and chicken with queso poured all over it. What's not to love about that? This right here is like when someone in the family dies and the local church throws you a potluck. But here at Rosemary's, no one has to die. You just eat the potluck. Oh yeah, coconut meringue. Oh man. And I've officially eaten too much.
That was 1 bite.
You're right. I got more room for more. Room for more. Wow.
Whew. This is what the day tripper car sounds like after a big meal. I think the pie at the end was maybe a little bit over the top.
You always go over the top. That's your
literally
thing.
melted in.
It should be called Over the Top. Check Garner.
Hey, that's another show. And there'll be no hiking, only eating. Yeah. And arm wrestling, right? It's called Over the Top. We gotta do
over the top.
We gotta do a little bit of arm wrestling.
Maybe instead of arm wrestling, just do the whole thing in the bad Stallone impression.
Hey, who said I have a bad Stallone impression?
That's a bad Stallone impression.
This is the best.
I was making it up.
Best Stallone impression you'll ever see.
I was making it up that you have a bad Stallone impression. That's a very bad Stallone. No,
what are you talking about?
Stallone's down here.
This is a perfect Stallone impression.
Stallone, yeah. You gotta talk outside your mouth. See, you fly con Dios, you know.
Hey.
All right, gang. One last stop to make. Now, I mentioned the musical history of town. Well, one of those historic joints is still singing. A place where musician Lightning Hopkins used to play for tips, and it's called the Camp Street Cafe.
When the showboys two dogs run and steered in the bar. Well, Camp Street was the business district for the African American community back in the days, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s.
This is Pip Gillette. He's the owner of this joint here and the local historian for Camp Street.
So was this empty lot right there full of businesses back in the day?
Yes, that was all businesses. There was Nook's Cafe on the corner, and there was a barber shop, there was a dry cleaners, and then there was the juke joint. So it was a full block there. Or many of them didn't even have locks on the door because they never closed. So it was pretty lively.
Now, for decades, Crockett was a stop on the Chitlin Circuit for musicians traveling between Houston and Dallas. But as time passed, so did the music. That is until Pip and his brother decided to bring it back, inspired by the musical experiences of their childhood.
So we go down to all those coffee houses, those little wonderful intimate clubs.
The listening rooms.
Listening rooms, and they were amazing. And of course they were literally coffee houses. They sold ice cream and coffee.
Yeah.
So you could be 15 years old and go see Muddy Waters and close the land to you.
That's awesome.
For pure music lovers, well, there is nothing better than a listening room experience. It's intimate, unfiltered, and just plain relaxing. Not only is Pip the owner of this joint, he's also a cowboy storyteller and picker.
You got immersed. Well, then chilled to the bone, made that long trot back home. It weren't much fun, but could have been worse.
Not only is Pip an incredibly talented songwriter and performer, but he's also the best rib bone player this side of the Colorado. You know, I spend a lot of time taking the back roads, passing through towns where even I'm guilty of saying things like, wow, there is nothing here. But the truth is, that's never true. I'm constantly reminded and humbled to the fact that every town tells a story worth sharing. Crockett's story is one of history, told in its buildings and in its soil. It's one of people who are dedicated to preserving that deep history for all of us to experience, and then other people who know the historic value of a good meal and conversation. My friends, whether we know it or not, we're all making history. And for centuries, behind the old pine curtain, Crockett folks have been making a history worth remembering and tripping.
Oh man, this is an incredible show. I wish y'all could hear it with me, but I will see all y'all out on the road. Bye con Dios, amigos.
Howdy, y'all. Follow along with my adventures at Chet Tripper on Instagram and at The Day Tripper TV on Facebook and YouTube. Or head to thedaytripper.com for travel guides, past episodes, and info on our mobile app and Team Day Tripper.
This episode was made for y'all with the help of our awesome partners. Check the caption for more info. Howdy, y'all. Chet the Day Tripper here. Thanks so much for tripping with us. Remember, while you're here, like this video, subscribe to our channel so that we can stay out there on the road and keep on tripping. Did we miss anything in this town? Leave us a comment, let us know. We love finding out about new stops with all of your tips. And if you love Epic Texas Day Trips, remember to check our channel. We got a lot of them on there. Also, don't forget, if you want some sweet Day Tripper merch or another cool Texas-made product, come see us in Georgetown at the Day Tripper World Headquarters. You can also shop online if you check the link down there in the caption. All right, y'all. Bye con Dios, amigos.